Hi.
Is it bar time if we start 10 minutes later, or are we supposed to go 10 minutes early? I don't.
I actually don't know about bar time. Bar time?
Seriously? Oh, okay. So the bar time is, it says it's 1 o'clock when it's 10 before 1, because they want people out. You know, they're done working, so the band is supposed to stop or play tie a yellow ribbon around the old, something that people won't want to hear at 1 in the morning. So. Good morning. Good morning. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom.
It's really neat how everybody knows the words for that. Hey, you guys are doing a great job out there.
They are. Yeah, we're here.
Are they taking down the whole forest?
No.
No. The underbrush? Not the underbrush.
So we can walk through the forest.
They're general cleaning. Wow. Like sending them back where they belong. This is, I don't know about this. I have this image of a fiber optic cable. I actually have never seen one, but my image is that there's this cable that has multiple strands. And there are some moments when I'm aware that there are just multiple strands, and it depends on which one you pick, where it'll go. You know? And there's strands that are competing for attention. And I kind of feel that way at this moment. It's like a lot of things are going on, and there's a lot of energy. The slide that's on the screen, for those of you who have been here the last time, is actually the same slide. Well, it's got a different title, but it's the same slide because I wanted something to stay the same. And I wanted to be reminded both inside and outside that there actually are some things that stay the same. It's an amazing thing about major life changes because it's not like very few major life changes just happen all of a sudden, but when they get announced, they happen all of a sudden. And each and every one of us is on some path of discovering ourselves, opening to the call. And I guess the call is to step into the fullness of the being that we are, and to find how are we holding ourselves back? How are we holding each other back? And what is it we need to do? And sometimes significant changes feel like jumping off a cliff. A lot of times I feel that in meditation, you know, it's like, okay, catch me. And the ego goes, nope. You know, and it's like, yeah, let go, let go, let go. So I feel very grateful to be here with you, even in the midst of a time of change that's not totally comfortable. The very first synagogue, I was an assistant rabbi in West Los Angeles. And I remember the senior rabbi telling me that when you're talking to a group, be careful what assumptions you make about the people you're talking to. Because they may look like everything's okay, but there are people going through all kinds of stuff. And you really have no way of knowing, and you're not going to inquire into, okay, what's going on, but you know that we're all on some kind of journey. And there isn't any journey without ups and downs in this magical experience of incarnation. On the way here this morning, I got a call from Stephen Merritt, who is doing the music when I'm speaking, I guess next Sunday on Whidbey. And he had figured out my topic. You know, which is often welcome, because I often don't know what I'm talking about. And he was saying, you know, what we really need is we need to open to the consciousness of healing. Planet, people, person. We need to hold a consciousness, like those of us who are able to hold consciousness, those of us who are able to set intentions, need to hold the healing, because not only because it's needed, but because it's our responsibility. And it's not that I disagreed with him, but I said, the problem is when we talk about that, like on a Sunday or on a Friday night or on a Saturday, we can say nice words, we can sing nice songs, but that actually doesn't do it. And I said to him, like, how long, if you're honest, how long can you hold those energies in your consciousness? Like, can you do it for an hour? I mean, really, just holding the consciousness of healing, of wholeness, of planet, of person. And because I know him very well, I mentioned some specific things that, and like the line grew a little more silent at the other end, because it was like, we talk, we know what's required. We know what's required in our own lives, and we know what's required in supporting others, and we know what's required in supporting the planet. We even know what happened to us. Because what happened to us was this resurgence, emergence of the separation of ego. We are disconnected, and we've become increasingly disconnected from our planet, from others. And I said, words alone can't do it, and even intentions alone can't do it. It's got to be a practice that's every day. Really, it's got to be a practice that's many times a day. It's got to be, it's like if every objection or every resistance to healing and wholeness that appears in our mind, all the judgments, all the anxieties, all the not yets, not quites, almosts, if we could greet each and every one of those with an embrace, rather than get caught up in it, and let it take us to separation and to distance. It's like, when's the time for practice? It's right now. And it's right now, and it's right now, and it's right now. And I just look at my own life and like, how much of the time am I conscious? I mean, I may appear conscious, I'm walking around, my eyes are open, but no, I get absorbed in things, I get tied up in abstractions, So gatherings like this are critical. Gatherings like tomorrow are critical. I'll give you an ad because I stole something out of the office and I don't want you to let Dr. Richard know. I saw this through the window and I stole it. 40 Days of Gratitude. I am a thief. And I'm assuming these are being handed out tomorrow. This is good. What is it? Yeah. Steve just said, is that a denial or an affirmation? I am a thief, but what I'd like to be a thief of is beauty, ideas. Emerson once said, all my greatest ideas were stolen by the ancients. That's the kind of thief I want to be. There's good things that happen in this place, is essential. nature of that communication. This is a very special place, and I'm continually grateful to be here. So I guess I want to start with the hardest thing and the simplest thing and the easiest thing, and that's the words that are at the top of the sheet, because it's the essence of Shabbat. It's I'll tell you, each major tradition, each major spiritual path brings treasures, and the treasures aren't meant for them alone. You know, the treasures are meant universally. And at least in my consciousness, and I know Dr. Richard and Matthew and the people at this place share with me the realization that we've got to hear each other's treasures so that we can become whole. And one of the treasures of my tradition is called Shabbat. Shabbat is the Hebrew word from which Sabbath is like a transliteration. You know, that's where the word Sabbath came from. And many of you know that Shabbat is, in the creation story, imagined as a day of rest. Like the first story in the book of Genesis, the beginning of the Hebrew Bible, says God created the world in 6 days. The last thing God created was human beings in that first story. Friday afternoon, human beings were created, and then God needed a rest. I imagine 2 things. One is God said, "What have I done?" And the other is, you know, how come God needed a rest? Like all God did was talk. You know, I don't want to go on that path, but talk is actually a big deal, because creation comes into being through our talk. Creation comes into being through our stories. We are creatures of stories. When we say sticks and stones can break my bones, but words can never, no. The wounds from sticks and stones heal much faster than the wounds from words. Oh. Many of us just carry wounds from words all our lives. Words are like containers for consciousness, and they're just major. But actually, I don't think God rested. I'd like to think that the word Shabbat actually comes from a different Hebrew root of the same letters, which means to dwell. I think the whole idea of Shabbat is that it's an indwelling in the perfection of creation. I mean, what happens after the week of creation? God says, it's very good. I think that's rest. I mean, because work is trying to change things. Work is trying to make things better. And it's not that that's bad. It's just that what if we give up resistance to everything that is? Yes, that music comes at a particular time to it went away. If anybody has a cell phone, it would be good to check it now. Take a message for me, but I don't want to talk on the phone. So Shabbat is a moment when the words are, everything is exactly as it's supposed to be. Even my thoughts that it's not supposed to be this way are supposed to be. Even my judgments, even, whatever is, Shabbat is a moment of just allowing creation to be. Because that is the foundation for evolution. That is the foundation for significant change. That is the foundation upon which the evolution of greater wholeness, of greater peace, of greater possibility will always take shape. It's so contrary to what our ego thinks. So Shabbat is a consciousness even of loving ourselves just as we are right now. And whispering to the ego mind, if I totally accept myself as I am right now, it does not mean I am condemned to where I am right now. I'm only condemned to where I am right now if I am resisting where I am right now, because that gets me stuck. You know it's the secret of relationships. The only way we can get really close to each other is with love. And the only way we can let go of each other is with love. So no matter how things change in the outer world, Shabbat reminds us to open to it with love, to hold each other and to hold ourselves in that sacred container of yesness. You willing to do that for a minute? I mean, just whatever's going on. I mean, I know nothing important's going on with any of you. You know, your lives are totally easy and so I'd ask you to rise as you're able. The ancient image of Moses standing in front of the radiance that gets translated as the burning bush, and hearing, like, take your shoes off, take off your shoes, because the ground you're standing on is holy ground. Shabbat is holy ground. Shabbat is holy ground. And just imagine that the ground itself that is supporting us, the ground itself that we are standing on, is exactly as it's supposed to be. I mean, look at this. It's holding us. As far as I can tell, none of us is falling through. We sometimes fail to realize how magnificently we are being supported. So I invite you to share with me the affirmations of Shabbat. And if you agree, repeat them after me. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. I'm with exactly the people I want to be with. I'm doing exactly what I want to be doing. And I am exactly the one I want to be. So that we can go, Ma Yafeh Hayom, Shabbat Shalom. How beautiful the day. Shabbat Shalom. And one might even translate how beautiful the way. Shabbat Shalom, you know, because Shabbat itself is a way, and it is a way of life. So I invite you to share the song with me. And please sit down perfectly. You did great. Look.
Everybody get a chair.
That's like you breathe perfectly now. Good. I mean, it's really interesting in our lives because it's like most of the time we'd prefer only to be inhaling. You know, I mean, this thing about and the secret is, you know, like every light casts a shadow. Every shadow is evidence of a light. If you're an artist and you want to display bright light, you do it by contrasting deep darkness and vice versa. If all there is light, and if all there is darkness, you know. I love the yin-yang symbol, you know, because there's light in the darkness and darkness in the light, and that's how it is. And they are intertwined, and they work together, and that's the whole. And spiritual consciousness is not the consciousness that's always light. We'd like it to be. I mean, that's the ego's idea. No, spiritual consciousness is the embrace of the whole thing. There's yes, there's light and dark, there's yes and no, there's up and down. There's happy and sad. Yep. There's birth and death. There's sickness and health. So after the High Holy Days, you know, we just finished the Jewish High Holy Days. You could tell by how extremely spiritual I am, how... John, you noticed that. I mean, come on. Yeah. I do feel with this vest a little like Picard. Remember? He's always tugging the... I have no idea where that came from. So the High Holy Days are like, first Rosh Hashanah, the New Year, and then 10 days later Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement or the Day of At-One-ment. It's like Christmas and Easter coming 10 days apart. It's an intense period of introspection. It's an intense period of possibility, of prayerful meditation. And 5 days after Yom Kippur comes the Fall Harvest Festival. It's called Sukkot. And all this is biblical. I mean, the amazing thing is, this is stuff that has been celebrated for millennia. These are the oldest holidays that we are celebrating in this culture. Sukkot means booths. A sukkah is a booth. And traditionally we make a sukkah, which is like a thing that has not a fully covered roof. So it's a little open, and it can have at most 3 walls because it's a temporary dwelling. There's a tradition, a lot of people think that we dwelt in Sukkot when we were 40 years wandering in the desert. But that's not so. When we were 40 years wandering in the desert, we made much stronger tents. Most of them likely goat skin. Sukkot we used when we were harvesting crops, because what would happen is, I mean, I know you don't think about it these days, but Jews used to be farmers. And we would have different plots of land, and we would plant together. So we would help each other plant, and the planting would go from property to property, and then harvest. It would be ready for harvest here before it was ready for harvest here, because this had been planted a little bit, a couple days later. So we would all go out and we would help each other, and we would harvest here, and then we would harvest there, and we would stay in the field in Sukkot, in temporary dwellings. And they would, even now, they're decorated with fruits of the season, and the whole idea is it's a temporary dwelling, and it reflects a couple things. One is a kind of safety. Most of us live behind locked doors. Can you imagine feeling safe enough in our communities to be able to sleep in a sukkah that's open? There's no door. And just know that nobody has any interest in causing harm to another. Oh, can you imagine that? We've got to be able to imagine that, folks. And the other thing the sukkah represents is us, because each and every one of us is dwelling in a temporary dwelling. Here we are. This is my sukkah. And it's temporary. But it offers the opportunity to celebrate the harvest. Right after the holidays, not only the physical harvest, but the spiritual harvest. Because this is going to be where it's expressed. It's one thing to awaken to it on an intellectual or on a spiritual level, but without expression in the world, it's meaningless. So what is it that awakens that needs to be expressed? So I wanted to share on a couple of levels what I experience as the spiritual harvest at this time of the year. One of the aspects of the spiritual harvest is creation. You know, the whole idea of a new year, the Jewish celebration of New Year is not like our cultural thing of January 1st. It's a time of introspection, and it's a time of commitment, and it's a time of intentionality. It's a time of self-judgment. Ultimately, it's a time of self-love so that we can get on with the new year, so that we don't get stuck in the old one. So part of the harvest is a harvest of possibility. Harvest of possibility. What is yearning to be walked into our world through each of us? I don't know whether you realize this or not, but you have been appointed. You have been appointed to be on the planet in this area at this time. It's not a real easy time. It's not the most difficult time. It's not the easiest time. It's a time of both personal, cultural, national dislocation, planetary dislocation. But what is needing to be born through each one of us? I'm not even inviting you to have an answer. I'm inviting you to carry the question. I'm inviting you to carry the question of the new year. And the new year is opening to what's the call? What's my call? Each and every one of us is at a unique location of consciousness. I mean, we are right now. And ultimately, I'm responsible for mine. I can't be responsible for yours, nor can you be responsible for mine. But we have this awesome responsibility. Like, if I think about it, it's like, oh my God. What am I doing with my consciousness? What am I doing with my mind? What am I doing with my body? What am I doing with what am I doing with my work? What am I doing with my mission? What am I doing with it all? Nobody else can do this. I've been entrusted with this segment of a universal consciousness that is shaped through what I'm holding. Wow. I mean, it's almost as if someone must trust each and every one of us an awful lot. I mean, if one can personify the infinite field of consciousness that just says, here I am. Use me. Here I am. What are you going to do with me? Wow. The High Holy Days that open with Rosh Hashanah open with creation, stepping into something new, and conclude with atonement, at-one-ment. You know, like, okay, we've stepped into something new. We enter a period of introspection. And the goal is a deeper remembering. Because the truth of the matter is, our minds actually don't easily step into newness. Our minds carry with us structures that are really challenging to discover, as well as challenging to let go of. So much of the time, I don't even know what my mind is holding, but I can discover it by what stays exactly the same in my experience. Because the reality is everything's changing every minute. You know, I keep saying this thing about stepping into the same river. The river is always flowing except for my mind. Because my mind doesn't really feel comfortable with that. My mind wants some predictability, thank you very much. I'd like some things to stay the same. You got to say, mind, I love you, but I'm sorry, the river's flowing. And when we resist the flow, when we deny the flow, when we pretend the flow away, it just makes everything worse for us. And when we step into that flow, we discover something critical, and that is we're all in it together. We're all in it together. The consciousness that's been entrusted to you is your piece of the universal consciousness that's the same thing that's in me. I don't need to treat you kindly because I should. I don't need to treat you kindly because that's the rule. I don't need to treat you kindly because that's what I'm, being judged about. I need to treat you kindly because you're me. This thing about you shall v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. Yeah, we do. We don't, that's a description. I'm only able to love my neighbor to the extent I'm able to love myself. And the more I love my neighbor, the more I love myself, and the more I love myself, the more I love my neighbor. And by that love is unconditional acceptance so that I'm free. In a song, it's called Renew.
Here we are in the new days of our year. We celebrate the autumn and the path that brought us here. Spring and summer leaves, they're nearly gone. We're calling in a new light, welcoming the dawn. There's a sense of new hope all around. Maybe peace, maybe somewhere in some war-torn town, where the birds return to the trees, and smoke no longer lingers in a brand new breeze. Well, let's celebrate and renew. I'll be your loving best friend while we review. Maybe that is all we'll need to do. Let's celebrate and renew. Now maybe it's the cycle of the moon, just stirring up the tides on a stormy afternoon, where our beaches stay so strong. We can take in that view as night comes on. Then we'll walk down by the beach and renew. Maybe catch an early star or the rising moon. I think that is all we'll need to do. Walk so closely together, make one heart out of two. Let's walk by the beach and renew. Renew. Just be me and you. Renew. And this day we'll do. This moment is a present. It'll only take a few. Let's walk by the beach and renew. This here is the time of our lives. Now we can thrive or simply survive. Oh, but never throw it all away. Instead, maybe hang on to each other. Oh, my friends, well, let's hang on tight and renew. We can glow from our souls in this perfect little room. I think that is all we'll need to do. Just hang on to each other. Make one heart out of two. Let's hang on tight and renew. You can hang on to me. I'll hang on to you. Let's hang on tight and renew.
I love working with this guy. I'm grateful, Steve. I mean, he just wrote these songs, just knowing exactly what we'd need in the moment. It's so I want to talk about another part of the harvest for me. It's a harder part to talk about. The harder part of the harvest of any spiritual moment is the part of a moment awakening aspects of unconsciousness. You know, aspects that I didn't know I was participating in. I think a lot of us with white faces have been going through a greater awareness of, you know, white privilege and understanding more deeply that it's not exactly that we've been doing something, it's that we've been ignoring something. We've been not paying attention. We've been somehow ignoring, for example, that Seattle now is a more segregated city than it was before desegregation. You know, we're incredibly separate. You know, I remember the moment it occurred to me, I finally got it, that we, with white faces, we don't think of anything. When we get in a car, we go for a ride. We go from one place to another. That's not how it is for a black-skinned person. They get in a car and they're worried about getting stopped. You know, it's like, there's this whole thing going on. But this year, I think I'm becoming more aware of the things I pretended were no longer going on between men and women. And I'm starting to see stuff that I don't want to see, didn't want to see. Reading in a book that Luke had picked up about if men knew how angry women were, they'd be stunned. And I'm stunned. I was last week, I guess, I was at a conference in Monterrey, Mexico. And I was having a discussion with some of the leaders of different religious communities who were in the Interfaith Council. Mexico is 85% Catholic, you know, so there's there's a power base that a lot of other traditions feel very strongly and are attempting to assert their own. And one of the participants we were just at lunch, at breakfast actually, and he was talking about how no matter what religion someone is, if they're a son of God, he accepts them. And what he meant was, if they believe in God, no matter how they believe in God, they're a son of God and they're okay. I chose not to argue with him about, like, you know, look, you're really limiting God. But that wasn't the point. I said, well, everybody's a son of God. I said, what about the daughters? And he said, oh, no, in Spanish, and it's the same in Hebrew, in Spanish there is no neuter. So when you have a mixed group, the tense, the gender is always masculine. It's the same thing in Hebrew. If I say avot, which is normally fathers, but I'm talking about a mixed group, it includes fathers and mothers. And he said, and I said, you know, and I couldn't have said this before the holidays. I said, that is evidence of patriarchy. Yes, that's how language operates, but we don't think about it. We think it's natural. No, but we did that. We masculine, in the very form of language, we discriminate. In the very form of language, oh my. You know, we've learned that, I've learned to watch out for racial slurs, religious slurs. If I'm in conversation with people and you hear somebody saying something, you say, you know, hey, I've learned to watch out for body shaming, but I'm amazed at how I haven't heard how often women are objectified in conversations. interesting thing about, I was talking about it in a workshop in Mexico, and when I was saying this, the women are going, and the men are just oblivious. And I'm a man. It is so challenging to become aware of what I'm oblivious to. You know, so it automatically, if you're anything like me, it automatically raises defensiveness. Well, I don't know. And I guess for me, if spiritual harvest doesn't include my becoming aware of something I wasn't aware of, that's not really a spiritual harvest. You know, if all my spiritual harvest does is support the notions I have, where's the harvest? The harvest has to also include difficult things. Sometimes the harvest includes having to face truths in our lives that we have not wanted to face. So do you ever wonder, what are you unconscious about now? And what are the ways in which our unconsciousness hurts people? What are the ways in which, like, a lot of us want to have African Americans talk to us about how it is. I guess I'm reaching the point where I need women to talk to us about how it is. You know, because we don't usually talk about it. I don't know whether you women talk about it to yourselves, or whether there's a piece of it that just gets accepted. But it's here. Somebody and I'm not saying it's Mexican, but somebody in that group said, no, we have a matriarchy. The matriarchy, the woman has full control over the house. And I said, yeah, but what happens if that's not what the woman wants to do? And it was like there was no, you know how you talk to somebody and it's as if I was speaking a third language, you know. So part of my spiritual harvest is uncomfortable. And also part of my spiritual harvest is wondering, what am I not yet aware of that I gotta wake up to? If I don't utilize the consciousness with which I have been gifted to stop hurting people, to stop hurting myself. On Yom Kippur, on the Day of Atonement, there is a communal listing of ways in which we've hurt each other. And traditionally there's a chest beating that goes with that. And some years ago, I realized that chest beating is really not helpful. It's like, oh, we gotta love ourselves. It's the hardest thing. I gotta love that, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm unconscious. So that means we need each other. I need you to say, ouch, because I might not know it. And I need me to hear the ouch, whatever it is. It's a challenge. This is a challenging, beautiful opportunity. So I keep coming back to the line that's up here called the Shema. And sometimes I just come back to the first word, Shema, listen. How much of the time am I not listening? Shema. And Yisrael, which at the time this is written is not a country, it's talking about a community, but the word kind of means God persists. Listen, with all the change that's happening, all the rockiness, all the everything, there is that which is always. There is that which is always. The ego translates it according to the cute story, the interesting story of Jacob wrestling with the angel, you know, where it gets translated, Yisrael is, you have wrestled with God and with men and you have endured. And that's how the ego does it. The ego's always engaged in some kind of, but Yisrael is calling us, hey, 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 hey. There's something that endures. There's something bigger. Listen, there's something bigger. There's something bigger within us. There's something bigger than us. And there's something bigger than that. Go from exclusive to inclusive to more inclusive to more inclusive until we realize that this entire enterprise is a quantum entanglement. You know, where we're spinning with each other. We're just spinning with each other. Shema Yisrael, listen. Listen. Adonai Eloheinu. And these two words are paired because they're the absolute one, the absolute all, the absolute more than everything is our God, which is to say, awakens within each and every one of us. That's that piece of consciousness that we have. We all have it. It's our birthright. Yes, you get separate bodies. Yes, you get separate parents. Yes, you get separate histories and tracks and experiences. And you get God. And you get consciousness. And you get I-ness. I-ness. This word came this year for me, where I realized it's not yes, your highness, it's yes, your I-ness. Everyone is your I-ness, your I-ness. Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Eloheinu. We say Adonai because you can't pronounce the four-letter name that means allness because it's not a name. You can't have a name for that because any name draws a circle around something and says everything in that name is in the circle. What if you're referring to something, pointing to something outside of which nothing is? Can't say the name, so you replace it with some other word. Adonai, got to point to it. Every time you read, maybe one of you sometimes opens a Bible. Do you know that book? It's like when you read in translation, you'll find the word Lord often in small caps. And it's in small caps because it's the unspeakable name. It's not, the translation is not Lord. Lord is way too small. Lord is the translation of the replacement word, not of cross it out, white out Lord and write eternal. White out Lord and write presence. White out Lord and write being. All those have capital letters. And then it says, Adonai Echad. It's one. It's one. It looks separate. All our senses tell us it's separate. Our languages tell us it's separate. Our histories tell us it's separate. It's not separate. Please say this with me. Shema Yisrael. Say it again. Shema Yisrael. Adonai Eloheinu. Adonai Echad. And this Echad, I understand that's a hard thing to say, the Ch. But you got to remember it's like Hanukkah or Christmas. Ch. You always know how many people are kind of new by the people who are still laughing at that. Because, you know, most people go, he's going to do that again. Ch, ch, ch. Like, yich. There are two letters that often Jewish people will have around their neck. That's the two letters that spell chai, which means life. And Hebrew obviously is read from right to left rather than Latinated languages that are read from left to right. But if you don't know the direction that the letters go in, you read it the wrong way. It comes out yich. And that's actually, I mean, I could do a whole teaching on that. Because if we look at life backwards, it's yich. Actually, I can't do a whole teaching on that. That's a whole teaching. So say the whole thing. This is a mantra. If this were Sanskrit, it would be a lot easier to identify as a mantra. And you'd be much more likely to, Om Mani Padme Hum. Oh, I got it. But it's like just as Sanskrit is the holy language of that part of the world, Hebrew was the holy language of this one. It's the language Jesus prayed in. He actually didn't know English. I'm pretty sure about that, at least. I mean, this was just basic. And it's basic because it's the thing we most forget. It's basic because it's the thing we most need to remember. It's the focus. Listen. Listen beyond our senses. Listen beyond our minds. Listen beyond our bodies. Listen. We're all connected. We're all one being. Only when we remember that do we have a chance of understanding our connection, not only to each other, but to our planet and to all the beings on this planet. So I invite you to sing this into meditation.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu 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 Adonai Echad. And dropping into a space of listening. And just letting the listening unfold. Being present. Listening to the body. Listening to the mind. Slowing down enough so that we can actually listen to the mind. Listening to the heart. The heart speaks in hopes and dreams. Sometimes the heart speaks in fears and anxieties. Sometimes the heart speaks in such deep love. Listen. Listen and remember that no matter how fragmented, no matter how separate, no matter how polarized, no matter how contentious our experience of ourselves and each other might be, there is always that which endures, that which persists, that which is. Listen. There is a moreness. There is an isness. We call it Adonai, meaning universal presence, universal consciousness, absolutely unlimited. Unlimited being. That, beyond word, beyond speech, beyond image, that is what we serve as vehicles for. That's this gift that we carry. Within each and every one of us, that spark, that presence, that possibility, that potential, that allness. yearning to be remembered, yearning to be met, yearning to be expressed, yearning to be celebrated. Universal and particular, the all and the separate are one. It's all one. It's all one, and we are it. We are presence walking itself into our world. We are life itself, awakening itself exactly where we are. Listen. 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 It's beyond word. It's beyond separation. Perhaps we meet it as a chant, a sound, the kind of sound that so blends, so connects, so reverberates. Perhaps to meet it now with the sound ah, to tone ah as a chant. Take a breath for ah. And take a breath. And let your sound join with those around you. Take a breath. And let your sound embrace us all once again. Because always there's a circle.
There are times we feel downhearted when we'd swear we walk alone. Still we search for any sign that we might find our pathway home. Now there's something oh so lovely, like a star in a crystal night, when I'm reminded deepest darkness can be lit with just one candle's light. There's a circle we're a part of, hand in hand it glows with love. In this circle there's strength in numbers, as we rise to lift each other up. With the help of sisters and brothers, and some friends I have yet to know, they give me strength to face the future. They lift me up so I'm never alone. And there's a circle we're a part of, hand in hand it glows with love. In this circle there's strength in numbers, as we rise to lift each other up. Every breath, every step, every heartbeat in my chest, there's a circle we're a part of, as we rise to lift each other up. Come the morning, bright and cleansing, it's gonna warm from the outside in. Nothing shines so, oh so brightly, as the love that shines from within. There's a circle we're a part of, hand in hand it glows with love. In this circle there's strength in numbers, as we rise to lift each other up, as we rise to lift each other up. We rise with love. We rise with love. We rise with love. We rise with love.
And we rise with love. And if you can kind of merge together, just symbolically closing the space between the rows that in one way or another separate us. The 40 days of gratitude officially begin tomorrow, but for me, it begins today. I'm grateful, so grateful for these moments we get to share. I'm grateful for each and every one of you who comes and allows this to be. I'm grateful for those of you who forgot to contribute to the basket on the way in. Can do so on the way out. It's always my goal to contribute to this place. I'm grateful to Steve Mason, who is just a wonderful person to work with. And most of all, I'm grateful for us. And I'm grateful for the energy that we get to celebrate. Take a breath. Perhaps in the coming weeks to listen more clearly. Perhaps in the coming weeks to hear what we've not heard before. Perhaps in the coming weeks to act more gently and more kindly and more lovingly, because we're learning to listen better. Perhaps to remember to celebrate the moment. Holy One, you who awakens within each of us, you who supports it all, help us celebrate your presence through our thoughts and our actions. Help us remember. Remember ever more clearly that we are in fact supporting each other as we journey from strength to strength, from love to love, and from life to life. Shabbat shalom, everybody.